Okay, so I guess we're starting this off. Welcome to
Yes,
our
sir.
currently unnamed podcast. I am CJ. Want to introduce yourself, good sir?
I am Fluffy. We met on Discord through a mutual friend.
Yes. And I'd like to say we've become really good friends. Due to like mutual tastes in music and everything else.
I can agree with that.
Yeah. So I guess then to kind of start this off, I don't know if you're going to end up rolling your eyes or not, but there is one band that I've been continuously mentioning to you, and that is Dead Label.
Yes.
I know, as I said, I know we've spoken about fucking Dead Label quite a lot, but Dead Label are one of those bands that I just still feel like they don't get enough recognition for what the fuck they're doing in the game. Currently playing Born of Osiris. I don't know. What was your take on Dead Label when you first heard them?
I mean, I didn't quite know what to expect. Because you were just like, hey, let me just show you this song real quick. And, next thing I know, I'm sitting here like, what the fuck is this? How have I not heard this before? I like to pride myself in having a very wide knowledge of music, not necessarily isolated to one thing.
Yeah.
I'll listen to anything from rock, metal to damn musicals like Grease or something like that. But I know you lean more on one side. So whenever you was talking about this band, I was kind of, I mean, obviously I look at the views and the subscribers and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's something really new, or maybe they're just not really popping off. And then you started playing it and my mind was fucking blown. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, how the fuck are these people not more known?
Yeah.
And I know me and you talked about it, and you said that they're more of a local band than anything. And it blew my mind that there can be a local band to an area that's truly that good. Because you think local band, and you're like, can't be anything too great, just some generic sounds and generic lyrics, and then came Dead Label.
Yeah. Like I still remember my first time seeing Dead Label live. It was way back. I believe this is how bad my obsession is with the local scene. I believe it was the 25th of May 2012.
Oh shit.
And on
You
that
got it to a day.
on that bill was Machine Head were the main act. Then you had Evil, and then starting the entire gig off was Dead Label. And I remember I had heard, I think the song is called Thrasher by Evil. It's just this really fast paced, like aggressive, like in your fucking face song. And I remember I was just like, okay, I can get behind this. Like I'm fucking hyped for this gig. Obviously didn't know anything about Dead Label. So I was like, right, let's go. Dead Label come on stage and you could just hear the thick Irish accent from Dan. I was like, okay. Dan being the bass player and vocalist. I was like, okay, this will be interesting. And they fucking blew me away. Like straight up, Dead Label blew me fucking away. Don't get me wrong, Evil and Machine Head put on an amazing show that night as well. But that highlight for me was definitely seeing such an aggressive band from Ireland. It just, I don't know, it couldn't fully register that something this heavy could come from Ireland.
Yeah, I kind of had the same viewpoint of it too. Whenever you showed me some of their music.
Yeah.
I don't know, call me ignorant, but whenever you're an American and you think of other countries, anywhere really that's not here in the States, you kind of already have this image of said country. For me growing up, watching movies and stuff like that, and every time I heard Ireland, all I think of are people drinking, people fighting, and mobs. That's all that's all I would think of. And then whenever it would come to music, the only other music that I've heard come out of Ireland are a couple rappers, which I'm assuming were just a local to just Ireland, and they were pretty impressive. But I never thought anything like Dead Label would come out of Ireland. So, I mean, that just blew everything that I thought, out of the water.
And then even with Dead Label set aside, excuse me, I know we talked about Words That Burn as well. And I think they took you back a little bit as well with the aggression that they had with that Parkway Drive kind of energy to them. And
hell yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, it's incredibly fun for me seeing people see the aggression that I experienced way back when. I've been following Words That Burn, I think, since 2010. And obviously when I saw them, they were a completely different band. They didn't sound as aggressive as they do now. They were just typical garage band kind of a band. But at the same time, you knew with the passion from each one of the guys that was up there and how much they were given into it, that they were going to get somewhere. But as well as that, something that kind of surprised me and that I started to learn very quick is, even with all the aggression and with everything that we've previously discussed, and I don't just mean here on this podcast, the Irish scene can be very fucking judgmental and cutthroat as well. I know I was going for a position of a bass player going back, I think this was 5-6 years ago. And now, don't get me wrong, the band actually did end up finding a bass player and they're doing incredibly well for themselves. I have nothing but respect for them, but there's just one particular member that kind of left a bit of a sour taste. Because when I was sitting down and I was talking to all of them, they were asking who my influences were. And, I said some of the typical ones, fucking Cliff Burton and Rob Trujillo. Why am I drawing a blank right now? Eugene from Ginger. All those kind of bands. But I also did mention Dead Label. And I believe he's the drummer. I don't want to give away too much. Just in case, because I know, if this does actually get off its feet, I know we are planning an interview with Dead Label already.
Which will be fucking awesome.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. I don't want to give away too much because I don't want there to be any animosity or any hate. And I'm not trying to say that Dead Label would do that. I know them for years. But still, I don't want to throw shade at anybody. But I remember this guy then coming to me and he was like, well, fucking why? All they're doing is just generic fucking breakdown shit. I'm like, they're not though. They're really not. They're adding mixtures of deathcore and groove metal together in a way that's interesting. I will say it's not 100% unique, but the way that they're doing it right by themselves. And as a band, that's what you should be doing. You should be making music that you enjoy and that just comes naturally to you.
Oh, dude, 100%. I mean, you can look at, these massive artists or bands or whoever it may be, you know. And I mean, we can take Sleep Token, for example.
Mm.
You know, a lot of people can sit there and argue that, you know, some of the instrumentals kind of sound repetitive, but then once again, you can make that argument that it's like, okay, sure, maybe, but if you go down, you actually break it down, you're actually listening to it. You can hear how, you know, a band like Sleep Token just twists and tweaks it just right for them, you know.
Mm.
And you can tell that that band thoroughly enjoys doing what they do, because they don't sit here and come out with, you know, fuck, 2 albums in 2 years or 3 albums in 2 years. You know, they're not just blowing out music, like they're actually taking their time. You know,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that that Tool does. You know, Maynard, any of his bands, you know, he's very particular with how they sound.
And that is actually an interesting point when you were talking about Sleep Token, you know, not pumping out an album every 2 years or whatever. Tool were one of the first bands that came to mind. Because, as you said, like Maynard, he thinks about everything in a very like meticulous and kind of weird way. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
yeah.
Lateralis. I'm almost certain I'm going to end up getting this wrong, but it's along these lines anyway. The demo for that song was actually called 456 or something like that, or 567, some fucking weird tree number combination like that. And the reason that it was actually called that is because in the Fibonacci sequence, that's actually a number that does appear, but it also correlates to the time signature that they end up using. It's, I don't know. I know that there was a full 30-minute video that explained it, and that was one of the things that kind of stuck with me.
I know exactly what you're talking about because I saw that video.
Yeah.
Dude, that's where it's like, you're not going to go so deep into your music to make it sound a certain way, or even for the names of your songs, you know, if you didn't truly enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, Tool definitely is a perfect example of this. I mean, you can look at, you know, all of their music, just any of Maynard's music.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, like what you were saying earlier, you know, Dead Label, I mean, they kind of in a way do something like that, you know, to where they're enjoying what they're putting out. And you can see it with almost all their music.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're not spending the time to actually do and doing what you want to do and having fun with it, I mean, that's how a lot of bands end up breaking up, you know.
Yeah. I think a prime example of that is, now I understand that this band obviously went through their own struggles during the time period, but even more recently, is Metallica. And the two kind of eras that I'm talking about are Saint Anger and 72 Seasons. And now the reason that I bring up 72 Seasons, I'll actually touch on that in a second. The whole Saint Anger thing, I understand, you know, they were getting a new bass player to replace Jason Newsted. And realistically, Jason Newsted had filled in since Cliff Burton died. And now they're repeating this whole vicious cycle of, you know, they've just lost a bass player. And, you know, obviously those wounds from Cliff's death may have been reopened because now they're having to face this reality again. James Hetfield's going through rehab. Fucking Bob Rock was filling in on bass on Saint Anger, and he was also helping to kind of go in a new direction, which didn't exactly work. Now, I'm not saying Saint Anger is the worst album out there. I actually did enjoy some songs on it. But it was definitely one of those things where I think there was too much pushed too quickly. And it feels like history is repeating itself now again with 72 Seasons. Because that album in general just felt very generic. Like I couldn't even get halfway through the album before I turned it off because I was just bored.
Yeah. You know, I can't really speak too much, you know, on Metallica just because I've never.
Hmm.
So this is one of the bad things about, you know, having such a wide, what would you call it, a playlist of music that you would listen to, because until you find a band that you truly enjoy, you know, for the most part, you're only hearing a lot of these bands top songs, or every now and again you'll find one of their not so known songs. And for me, that's what Metallica fell under. Do I enjoy a lot of their music? Yes. But my knowledge as far as the entire band, I definitely know they've been having their ups and downs. Some albums are significantly better than others. Um, but I mean, you know, they never were on my end a band that truly hooked me,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but I mean, you know, going with those creative differences,
Hmm.
you know, yes, Metallica's definitely been one of those bands that have put out a whole bunch of music, and a lot of it did sound generic. Um, but then you have bands like System of a Down, where you have Serge that likes to do his music one way, and then you have Darren that likes to have the band sound a different way. You know, a lot of
Hmm.
systems music, you know, is what Darren fought to have put out, and Serge never really enjoyed doing it that way, which is why, you know, there was such a big um
Back and forth between the two, like.
yeah, and it took him forever to come out with another album. And you know, that was mainly because, you know, they came to some sort of mutual agreement to put it out. But now it's like, you know, I don't know, man. It's crazy how, you know, just a bit of a conflict. Whether it's just a disagreement of music, whether it's some personal stuff, you know, whether it's drugs, you know, it blows my mind with how much that can affect the music that's put out, or when music gets put out, you know, or whether something sounds generic, you know, or, you know, you listen to it, like I said, a band like System of a Down, and you think that they're all like the entire band's like all gung ho wanting to sound like this, and then you find out, you know, that that's not necessarily the case, you know.
Yeah.
um but yeah, I mean, System was one of those bands that, you know, I got extremely hooked on. And you know, unfortunately, Metallica was also one of those bands that I did not get hooked on. So, you know, my knowledge of Metallica, you know, and all their ups and downs, you know, is not quite there unless I sit here and do my thorough homework. But you know, as we all know, we all have stuff going on IRL.
Yeah.
And you know, me, mechanic by day, so that consumes 90% of my time.
Hmm. And I think, like a prime example of what you were saying with Serge and Darren, is, have you ever listened to Darren Malakian's side project, fucking Scars on Broadway? I was about to say Scar Symmetry, completely different fucking band.
You're going to be surprised, but no, I have not.
Oh, okay. So, obviously, you're very familiar then with how System of a Down sounds.
Oh yes, most definitely.
So the one song that actually came to my mind was Chemicals, whenever you were talking about like how Darren likes to do his stuff one way. Is it Darren or Darren? No, it is Darren.
Yeah, it's Darren.
I was getting confused on if it was Darren or Darian, but it's Darren. Yeah, this song Chemicals sprung into my mind because I fucking, like, whenever I want to play a System of a Down song, but I don't want to play a System of a Down song, this is what I put on. And I love jamming out to this on guitar as well. It's such a fun song, but it's so fucking weird as well. I'm going to play a little bit of it, and like 100%. If you didn't know that this was a side project, you would swear that this is System. Like 100%.
All right, let's check it out.
Right. See what I mean about it though?
The only reason you can tell this is not System is because you do not hear Surge. But yes, yes, I definitely see what you're saying, because that sound right there is, well, it's like you said, if you didn't know Scars on Broadway was a band,
Mm-hmm.
and you were just sitting there just doing a random play on Pandora or whatever it is, that you may listen to music on, and this song happened to come on, the whole time you'll sit there and listen to it, be like, I don't hear Surge, but what the fuck? I didn't know System came out with a new song.
Yeah.
And you'll look at it and boom, it's an entirely different band. So yeah, this right here is perfect example of that.
Scars on Broadway are one of those bands, like, I remember discovering them so fucking long ago. And it was actually this album itself that I discovered. And I couldn't get over it. Like, it was in a point in time where we knew System were just completely fucked. Like, they weren't going to be pumping out new stuff. But this was just all a breath of fucking fresh air. It was like, this is new System, but it's not new System.
Oh, fuck yeah, man. I mean, I think the only side project I ever knew that came out of System was Surge's own standalone music. That first album he put out, I was like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome. And you can hear those creative differences between Surge and Darren, and you can understand why there was a conflict, between them.
Yeah.
Whenever it came to their music, especially for the band System of a Down,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, whenever you listen to Elect the Dead, as you said, the first album that Surge actually released, it is so vastly different, but both are still bringing their own points of System over with them. Like, what was the one 100%. Song? What was the fucking... I'm actually
Empty Walls?
Empty Walls. Thank you very much. Empty Walls still felt like a System song without actually being a System of a Down song.
I remember whenever I first heard that song come out on YouTube, that was also one of those moments where I was like, holy shit, System's got a new song. This sounds, obviously it sounds different, but then I went and looked at it, because everybody knows Surge's voice. Everybody does. But then I went and listened to it, and I was like, oh shit, hold on. Surge has got his own standalone shit going on. And then that's at that point, whenever that song came out, so whenever I started, doing research and then trying to figure out, what's going on, whether this is just like a little side project he's wanting to do, or whether there's something going on with the band. I mean, just the whole album. You got Empty Walls, Unthinking Majority. That's another good one where, you would think that that's a System song, but then you hear how different it is. That whole album was just great.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely fucking interesting. And even Sky Is Over. Like, it could have passed for System of a Down just going a lot more melodic.
Oh, yeah.
Which is interesting. I haven't checked out anything past Elect the Dead, so I think that could be something interesting that I might end up sitting down and doing.
Oh, yeah, it was... I will say I started to kind of veer off of Surge's own project, just because, I respect the guy. His music, some of the later stuff is definitely out of my wheelhouse. Just not necessarily anything that really caught my attention. And I think that definitely start a good convo for another time too, because we could discuss how different it has gotten with him.
Okay. And I think there you're making a very good point. I think something that, I would like us to touch on in the future as well, is songs that kind of made us uncomfortable, but we ended up coming around to, if you get what I mean.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, there's definitely a few of those, just amongst many bands that I've listened to and many musicians.
Yeah, because
I was going to say, I mean, perfect example, it could be none other than Tool. First time I heard them, I watched a music video, and I was really young at the time, and I was just like, "What the fuck is happening?" And the first song, I was like, I don't like this that much. This is a little too fucking weird. And then I started listening to it more and more, and I was like, oh, okay, I like it.
Right. So I guess kind of staying on this whole relevant topic. One thing that I did touch on earlier, and I'd kind of like to backtrack to it a little bit, is I know when we were talking about Words That Burn, and I was talking about the fact that, when I would have seen them first, they would have been a completely different band to what they are now. I think one thing that I love to see with bands is whenever they release all of their demo stuff. And I know a lot of bands like to keep that stuff kind of private and everything else. But I also like it whenever bands kind of remake or redo their songs as well. I think it puts a very fucking interesting twist on it. And the reason that I like
100%.
Yeah, like one reason why I like demos coming out is for that same reason. Like, it's nice to see where a band's mindset started and where it ended up. And not only that, like, I think one of the biggest things, especially for myself, as somebody who, I play guitar, I play bass, and, I'm trying to get into writing music and everything else. I don't mean this in any shade towards anyone whatsoever that does release demo stuff. It's nice to hear how shit some of the recordings sound.
Oh, like, yeah.
It's nice to hear, bands like Metallica or, like Whitechapel or fucking any band like Slipknot, fucking anyone at all. It's nice to hear them actually fuck up from time to time.
Oh yeah, I mean that helps boost the motivation, of a lot of bands out there that are like, oh god, fuck man, we're trash. Why can't we get it together? What the fuck are we doing? And I think it's great that a lot of big bands or some big bands will sit there and release those demos, because it's kind of like saying, hey guys, I mean, you and your band, y'all are new. I mean, hell, we've been doing this 10, 15 years, and listen to how we still start, songs that we're putting out now. This is what our demo sounded like right before we released it, and I think it's a wonderful thing that bands do that.
Yeah. But kind of also going on that, like one of the songs that sprung to mind when I was talking about the remaster or remake is Diamond Head. Diamond Head started in fucking whatever time during the 70s. I think it was late 70s, early 80s. Could have been earlier than that. I don't fucking know. I know that these were a big influence on Metallica. They released a song called Am I Evil? Metallica covered it on Garage Inc. They also covered a few other songs by Diamond Head, but way back they released it and it sounded like typical 80s like rock or metal, and they're British, so it was part of the British New Wave as well, so it had that kind of a grit to it, like that old school like Judas Priest kind of grit. But then in 2021, I thought it was 2022, they remastered Am I Evil? And Am I Evil was one of those songs that, like, I wanted to learn no matter what it took. And hearing the remastered version of it now, it fucking blows me away. Like, even just from the intro, it fucking blows me away.
Here's another interesting take. You can look at the timestamp, of how long the song is, and you know, for Diamond Head, you know, these two versions that you have right there, you know, one's 740, one's 720. Then you go look at the remastered, and it was, what was it, 743.
Yeah.
So that right there, you know, already tells you there's been changes that have been made in this song, you know, and unless you've heard the original, or unless you know the music, you know, the average Joe Schmo, you know, you can use me for an example, probably wouldn't even detect it unless I listen to both songs back to back.
Yeah. And there, I actually just quickly checked that they started in 1976.
Oh shit!
Which, yeah, I had the pleasure of seeing these guys live back in fucking whatever it was, 2009, 2010, and they were fucking phenomenal. But if I may, I'm going to stick on the intro from the original. And then we're going to listen to the 2021 version, and we'll just go from the intro and the little intro solo, and we'll kind of compare the differences, because, as I said, hearing this after it had been remastered, it just fucking blew my mind. Right.
Woo!
Okay. So
I definitely feel like I've heard this somewhere, and maybe that comes to it being, you know, 80s, you know, type of metal. I feel like that could be like like a superhero song or something like that. You know, like the like what Iron Man has. You know,
yeah,
I feel like that could be some superheroes like theme song.
but you
That's
see,
fucking awesome.
even in saying that, like, during Iron Man 1, we had Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath, you know, had Iron Man on it, and that was all part of the British new wave of heavy metal, which Diamond Head falls under. So like, it has that same sort of fucking grit to it. And I think that's something that kind of goes unappreciated nowadays, is like the old school grit that a lot of bands used to have. And I'm not saying that, you know, it's a bad thing that we don't have it anymore, but it is something that's missed. And I know we're not going to be able to replicate it, because obviously, as you know, music moves forward and everything else, like, there's going to be advances, there's going to be changes, and naturally people's tastes will change as well. And yet again, we see that with the new remaster, because a lot of that grit is gone, but the aggression is still there.
Man, you saying all that, you know, just did a flashback for me. This also, I guess, shows my age too. I mean, we all know Ozzy. Everybody knows Ozzy. At least that's what you would think. And this is kind of doing a little sidetrack, which is going to happen a lot with me. So just be prepared. But I don't know if you remember whenever Post Malone did a song with Ozzy and the song got released. This was what, a year or two ago, something like that.
It's sad that I know where you're going with this. Yes, this was in the middle of lockdown.
It broke my heart whenever
Mm-hmm.
I'm cruising through social media and I saw a post saying, "Oh my God, Posty is such a nice guy. He's so talented. You know, he can detect good musicians like this guy Ozzy. I'm so glad he introduced Ozzy to the world." And I'm sitting there saying to myself, what the fuck do you mean he introduced Ozzy? This fucking guy's been around eating bats' heads, doing blows since the 70s, man. Oh man. And that's where, where people's music changed, and I'm living in that. I think we both are living in a generation to where we're seeing those changes and how a lot of what there was back then. Of course, I wasn't alive in the 70s and 80s, but I was very familiar with the music because I grew up in the 90s. I was born in 93. And a lot of my family would listen to old school music, and it was always that grit that you would hear.
Yeah.
And it got lost.
Yeah.
Just over the years.
And that's the thing, like, I understand, when obviously whenever Ozzy was out doing blow, licking piss off the side of fucking pools, biting the heads off bats, and just
snorting fire ants,
fucking doing all that crazy shit. Like, I was still living cozy in my daddy's balls. Like, I get that, but at the same time, like, there's a level. No, it hurts my brain. Like, it genuinely does. It hurts my fucking brain. Because as far as I know, didn't Post Malone himself state during a few interviews that Ozzy was actually an influence on him, even before they did the song?
Oh, yeah, well before all this. I mean, obviously we all know Posty. He's a rapper. His first album, it's fucking incredible, and he's done many interviews since then. He's mentioned Ozzy several times. And you can even hear some of the covers that he does of other music. How he's not, Post isn't dedicated rapper. That's just what he's great at doing. That's where he blew up, that's where he's famous from. And just how he dresses, like I said, some of the covers that he does, you could tell that Post is also one of those guys that's got a wide range of music that he listens to. And there was one interview I was listening to. It was on a podcast, and he started mentioning Ozzy, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm not surprised that Post is one of those guys that listens to Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, you can see whenever he did live shows with Ozzy, how friendly they are towards each other, and how much respect he has for Ozzy. Because I imagine Ozzy's one of his heroes. I mean, he's got to be. And once you reach that level of fame that you're doing a song with Ozzy fucking Osbourne, I mean, come on.
Yeah, like it. I don't know. It fucking baffled me. Like, it really did. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not claiming to be the biggest Ozzy Osbourne fan or anything else, but at the core of it, like, there was actually kind of a level of like ignorance and disrespect there.
Oh yeah. I mean, you don't even have to be an Ozzy fan or gotta love everything about the guy. But it doesn't matter who you are, you can't help but respect what Ozzy and his music did for the genre, especially at that time. Whenever that music was out. And Ozzy definitely played into the role of being that fucking crazy metalhead, that you don't want to meet or see at any point. Because you don't know what the fuck is going to happen. But I mean, the stuff Ozzy's done for the music industry, you can't help but respect that.
Yeah.
And I think, even in this day and age, you would think someone like Ozzy would be well known for everybody.
Mm.
But I mean, it obviously wasn't the case.
Yeah, like, being honest with you, like, if I could go back to any point in time and like just live a day with someone with like no repercussions, no worry about like health issues or anything like that, and I'm saying that for a very fucking specific reason, I think definitely on my top 10 or even top 5 would be to just go and live a day with Ozzy. Not as Ozzy, but with him.
Oh, brother.
During his prime. And
Yeah.
I think now you understand why I'm saying that, like, it would only be for a day and there's no risk of health issues or anything else.
Just to see what it was like.
Because the thing is, right, I've never been inclined to do drugs. I've never been out at a party and thought to myself, hey, I'd like to do some cocaine or anything like that. I have no problems with people that do it. I've actually found that, a lot of people that actually do it can tend to be quite fucking chill. So that's why I've no fucking problem. Like, you do you, don't force it upon me, don't force it upon anybody else, and we're good. Like, I've no problem with it. But like, I think if I could go back to that time and like know for a fact that like, hey, you're going to be here for a day and then you're just going to go back to living your normal life in the present, and you're going to have like no health issues, no addiction problems, no nothing, I would just match Ozzy on everything he did.
You'd be dead in the first 10 minutes.
That's what I mean, though. Like, I would love to know, like, obviously he would have been a lot more seasoned to it. Like, he would have built up a tolerance and everything else. But even just trying to match it, like, how fucked up would you feel?
I mean, him doing what he did has led him to a life of creating the type of music that he made, and to perform the shows that he did so well that even, here fucking 30, 40 years later, there's just a couple of guys, Joe Schmoes, just sitting here talking about it.
Yeah. But the thing is as well, like, I know, we're praising him on the music and, everything that he's done with his life and everything else. I think one point that we also have to acknowledge is everything that he did and everything that he put in, whether it was voluntary or not, or through addiction or anything else, was very much a double-edged sword for him.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, I know he's either been trying to get sober for however many number of years now, or he is sober. But you can damn well believe that, like, he is still dealing with the repercussions of everything. I don't even think that guy can actually live a completely sober life anymore. Like, I think addiction is always going to be haunting him. And I know that that's terrible to say. I honestly hope it's not the case. But
if I'm not mistaken, I think Ozzy's kind of gotten past that, within the last 20 years, something like that. But I mean, it still validates, what you're saying. His lifestyle was very much so a double-edged sword, because whenever he was growing up, and whenever he was making all this music, I mean, he did fucking incredible with all this shit, but then, he's got all the issues that he ended up developing with his family.
Yeah.
And, once again, that even though he may not be on drugs, he's still, even to this day, dealing with those repercussions that, he has. I mean, of course, we only see, what they want us to see. And I know for a fact that there's still a lot of stuff going on in the background. But I mean, all that still stems from his addiction.
Yeah.
And what he went through. And I mean, he's got an incredible wife who sits there with him and takes care of him. Actually, are they married?
I can't remember if him and Sharon are still married or if they're divorced or what they're going on, because I never
think they got divorced, but they were like super good friends if they're not married.
No, they're still together.
They're still married. Okay. Because I swore at one point they got divorced, but I guess that was just whenever they were having a lot of issues. But I mean, having somebody like that, with you, I think is great for anybody, and it's been obviously fantastic for Ozzy.
Yeah.
But likewise, his life's always been a double-edged sword, and it's all stemmed from that addiction.
Yeah. Also, can we touch on something here in relation to like a major fanboy moment?
Go for it.
I could be getting little points of this story wrong. There was an article that actually came out about Jack Osbourne getting into music, obviously, through his dad, and then wanting to branch out and experience different bands because, well, Ozzy was more what would have been considered like heavy metal in the 70s and 80s, now being considered rock to a certain degree. I know Jack Osbourne growing up quickly became a very big Slipknot fan, to a point where he managed to pull some strings and got a meet and greet, either through Ozzy or through Sharon, to actually meet all of Slipknot. And now, fast forward to like a couple of years ago, Sid Wilson from Slipknot is now actually married and has a child to Kelly Osbourne.
Yo, that's fucking wild. I did not know that. That is fucking nuts.
So I can only imagine how much of a fanboy moment he had when he found out that one of the members of Slipknot were, I'm going to put this right here saying, respectfully, fucking his sister.
Oh no. Oh man, he's got to be getting all the scoop, like the inside scoop from what Slipknot's doing nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's nuts. I didn't even know that. Holy hell.
Yeah, they've been married for a couple of years now, if I'm not mistaken. Whenever it comes to like artists and their kind of personal lives, I've never been big on like prying. I hate the way that like articles are done up for newspapers and everything else of like, oh, this celebrity was seen without their makeup on. Well, big fucking what? They're only human. They're going to have their lazy days. It's always fucking bugged me. But yeah, I'm not going to digress down that path, because if I do, the podcast will just change into something else completely.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Fuck the tabloids. No. Yeah, so we were meant to check out Am I Evil, the 2021 edition. I think we're good on time, right? 50 minutes. Are you good to continue for a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Am I Evil 2021? You still remember the original, right? And the kind of sound and grit that it had? Okay. So, here we go. Actually, hold on. Apologies. That is not the new version. This is the new version.
That sounds a lot more. Oh, how could I don't even know if melodic's the right terminology. Sounds more theatrical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know, I know people would probably argue, oh, you know, that's just, you know, how the music was made back then. You know, they were limited to what they could do, but you know, with their instruments because of the speakers and yada yada yada, the way they record, yada yada yada, the interferences, feedbacks, whatever. But you could still replicate that same sound today, just fine tuning a couple little adjustments, you know, from what they did in the 70s and 80s. But this is a perfect example, you know, of how a band more or less evolves over
Yeah.
the years.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like they added the orchestral pieces in the background, and what they've actually done as well, and this is kind of going back to the whole grit over aggression, they've actually downtuned the song a half step. So instead of it being an E standard, it's now an E flat. And that's kind of what I was going off earlier on, saying, you know, we don't really get that grit anymore, but in place of it, we get aggression.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm in no way saying is either, you know, better or worse. I think they each play their own part. And as I said, Am I Evil is just one of those songs that I fucking love. And it was nice to hear this. It took me back to when I first heard Am I Evil by Diamond Head years ago. And it's fucking amazing. Like, it was nice to just go back down that whole memory lane and, you know, be in my early teens again. And I know that, you know, if there is that many people, you know, that will be watching this, if there's any of the older crowd, I'm sure that they'll be laughing, going, you know, oh, fuck off, you know. It's completely different than when they would have been teenagers and the song actually came out and stuff like that. But it was still wild to me, like, as a teenager, hearing a band do this. It was so completely different than what I was used to. But
another band that does a pretty good job of showing, you know, how they've evolved, is Winds of Plague. And I don't know if you're familiar with them at all, but they're definitely on the heavy side of metal. And I remember the first song I ever heard from them was Decimate the Weak on the same album, Decimate the Weak. So obviously they made that first album, and then how long has it been? 10 years or whatever it may be. They basically went back to that same album and redid all the music to how they kind of to show how they've changed. And I personally think, you know, both albums are still, like you were saying, with Am I Evil, you know, are still equally as good and definitely have their own places.
Yeah.
But this right here is another good example of, you know, how one band's sound has changed over the years.
Am I mistaken, by the way? I don't know if you will know this, but wasn't Decimate the Weak actually recorded in E standard?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Big abs. Decimate the Weak. Yeah. This was done in E standard, and I do know that I have heard this song before, and I remember thinking to myself, this is heavy as fuck. And then I found out it's an E standard, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, right? Like, I've seen plenty of videos of, like, does downtuning actually mean heavier and stuff like that. I think if a band does it right, the downtuning does not necessarily mean it's heavier. Like, Am I Evil, for that exact same example? Like, way back when, that would have been heavy as shit. And even now, with the remake or the remaster, whatever you want to call it, it still sounds heavy, even though it's only a half step down. I think it's about the atmosphere that you actually build in a song that can
Oh yeah,
make or break how heavy you actually want it to be. And I think
bro. I'm 100% with you on that. But what's that band? Baby Metal.
Baby Metal, the
That's another perfect example of a band where um does this actually make heavy music heavy, because you've got these female singers that are uppity, um I
singing
don't want to
about
sound
chocolate.
ignorant, but it's aren't they Japanese?
Korean?
Let's see.
Um, Japanese.
Yeah. Okay. So whenever we hear a lot of Japanese music, any of the female singers, they always have a higher pitch sound to them.
Mm.
But then again, you have a band like Baby Metal where they stick to their vocals being like that, but then they build that atmosphere, that environment with all the just the heaviness, the craziness going on, to where it's like, you got to build that up,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter what you do for your sound, whatever note you may put it out in, it's just how you build up the music.
Yeah. No, it's like, sorry. 100%. Like, I'm gonna push out what might be a fucking hot take here for a minute. Another thing is having these guttural vocals, like Phil Bozeman, like fucking Corey Taylor, like
Corey Taylor's son now.
Will Ramos, yeah, even Corey Taylor's son. Having those gritty kind of vocals doesn't always make a song heavy either. Like, we have plenty of heavy songs where vocalists can still keep to clean vocals. And I know, any song that I do reference will still feature certain bits of guttural vocals, but they're not actually the main point of the song. Like, if you take a look at Hickory Creek by Whitechapel, it's beautiful, it's melodic, but it's heavy. It's because it is building an atmosphere of loss and like of death, and the fact that he lost people in his life and everything else, and that's what makes it heavy. And I know that people might say, well, that's just heavy on emotions. No, the song actually still sounds heavy and chuggy, and I know yet again it's kind of falling into the whole down tuning thing, but that's not my main point here. We're more going off the atmosphere of it.
Oh yeah.
They just, yeah, look, just the main point is atmosphere means a fucking load in your music as well.
Oh yeah.
And yet again, I'm not trying to fucking shit on anybody or anything else. That's kind of something that we were talking about before as well, is like the melodic and the fast paced side of things. It's kind of like that as well. Where like obviously in the US, we've talked about the fact that bands seem to kind of go with a lot faster paced kind of music, whereas here in Europe, it's a lot more melodic. I know in like the Scandinavian countries, we have black metal, which is just all fast as well. But in the vast majority of Europe, like there's a lot of fucking melodic stuff. And a lot of that melodic stuff builds atmosphere and it just holds and maintains it. But then again, you've got a lot of power metal bands that are doing the kind of atmospheric stuff as well, but power metal's fucking weird. It kind of borders in between. It goes fast and then it doesn't, and then it goes fast and next you're fucking a dragon. Sorry, slaying a dragon.
I can second that. I agree.
Okay, let's jump in. We're going to check out the estimate of the week, and then we're going to check They actually released it as Decimate the Week 10 years later.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, which I found that funny while you were talking about that. Right, yeah, let's. I know it's a recording, but I love how steady those fucking blast beats are.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Dude, I fell in love with this band whenever I first heard them back in high school.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's understandable. Winds of Plague are one of those bands that I've kind of been sleeping on for a little too long. Like, big time.
Oh, yeah, they got a lot of great music, man. I mean, this being the first album I've heard, actually, Winds of Plague is who got me into a lot of the really heavy shit that I hear nowadays, because this literally was the first real heavy album that I listened to from start to finish and listened to religiously. I mean, there's a lot of bands from back then, you know, Born of Osiris, you know, fucking whoever it may be. But if I'm being 100% honest, if I never took time and actually heard and listened to the Winds of Plague, I probably never would even know who the fuck Born of Osiris or any of these bands that have such a staple, you know, in this music industry like that. I probably never would even know who they were.
Yeah, I fucking feel that. Like, there's a lot of bands that were like that for me as well. Kind of going back, Diamond Head kind of were kind of one of those bands. I was introduced to Diamond Head through Metallica, but then Diamond Head, funny enough, introduced me properly to the Irish metal scene, which sounds very fucking ass backwards, I know.
Oh, it does.
But the thing is, like, when I went to see Diamond Head, I was 16 at the time.
Oh,
and
shit.
I didn't know that, like, Ireland, or kind of where, like, the area that I'm living in, was big with a rock or metal scene. And I remember sitting down at the venue, and Black Swan came on stage. And Black Swan ended up becoming one of my fucking all-time favorite bands. I had seen them, what was it, like 28 or 29 times live since 2010.
Mm-hmm.
That's another one of those bands. Like, that was 21st of November 2010 when I saw them. And yeah, as I said, like, Black Swan just became one of those bands for me that just, they fucking blew me away. And, like, even their change from, like, way back in 2010 to, I think this was 2014. Yeah, 2014. That 16 Minutes was released. It blew my fucking mind to hear, like, how much these guys changed. But then from there, Black Swan, like, I went on and started to discover Words That Burn, started to discover Dead Label, Zora, fucking Nautilus. There's actually another band from Ireland that I meant to introduce you to. Vendetta Love. There we go. We'll listen to Decimate the Week 10 years later, and then we'll have to check out Vendetta Love, because they're a weird rock band that take influence from, like, Soundgarden and Guns N' Roses in a weird way, but they also like kind of take hints from the more like emo side of things as well. It's fucking weird. I don't know how to fully describe it. But yeah, we'll check out Decimate the Week 10 years later, and then we'll jump over to some Vendetta Love and kind of get your opinion. And it's going to be interesting because this is your first time that you're going to hear Vendetta Love. Actually, this is your first time hearing me speak of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I've never even heard of this band.
Yeah. Right. So.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Just right there. I fucking love it.
My boy, I just hit the stank face.
Yeah. Real quick. Go back to the other one and just do the first 5 seconds.
I just hit the fucking stank face.
Right there. You just that time. Somehow it sounds like he got more guttural.
I was actually going to say, right, when we were listening to this, I don't know if I was just hearing it or if there is actually like an orchestral piece going on in the background of this one.
So that's the glorious thing about Winds of Play, because they do have a lot of orchestral type stuff in the background. I know their pianist likes to play what's that big old piano that you see in a church with the big old tubes coming out. What's that called? Oh, fuck.
Is it a pipe organ or something like that?
No. It's just church piano. I don't know.
It is a pipe organ.
Yeah. And a lot of their music, they'll have that, in the background, because they've gone as heavy as they are. They've gone with this more traditional instrument type of thing to kind of pull out that really deep, just heavy noise, and they've done incredible with it.
Also, can we?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, can we appreciate the fact that they actually redid the artwork for the song?
Yeah, bro, you got to look at all the artwork that they've done in this album.
Shit.
I've still got the original CD. It's over in storage right now.
Fuck. What was the other song that I heard by these? I think it might have been off of either Against the World or Blood of My Enemy. I don't know. I'll figure that one out and I'll get back to you on it. I'll let you know which one it was. If I manage to figure it out when I'm doing the editing, I will put it up, just in case anybody is curious.
For sure. I'll go ahead and continue hitting that play button on it.
That is stanky, man. That just made it.
I know. It makes me so excited.
Hold on. Okay, I just needed to gather my composure for a minute. I don't know if you could hear me breathe into the mic. Fucking hell. Did they put an air raid siren into the back of that?
I don't know.
Because, okay, so here's a weird thing, right? And this is why this actually piqued my interest. There's a factory where I live, and they still have an air raid siren.
What the hell?
They actually use it on weekdays. They use it at 8:59, at 12:01, at 1:01, and 6:01.
The fact you know the times.
Yeah, so, okay, there's this whole big thing, right? I'm going to digress off music for a really quick second. This is a sound that I grew up with, which was this air raid siren. And it used to confuse the shit out of me. And I remember going to my parents one day and I was like, hey, by chance, like, obviously you have been living in this town, since before I was born. Do you know what that is? And I know my mom gave me one answer and my dad gave me another answer. I was like, okay, no. Something's fucking off here. Like, I gotta figure, parts of this out. And I remember I would hear it every so often, and it just started to get on my fucking nerves. I was like, I want to know what the fuck this is. And my obsession with it got so bad that I actually learned the times when it goes off.
You don't say. As he just casually states the times whenever it goes off exactly.
Yeah, and you're actually going to realize something here. So the times that I have stated were 8:59, 12:01, 1:01, and 6:01.
It's got to be, so that, to me, that says start of work, lunchtime, end of lunch, end of work.
So there's actually a factory in the town that I live in, and they managed to get their hands on an alarm. And when the alarm broke, the only thing that they had accessible was an air raid siren. And somehow they got clearance to use this air raid siren.
That's fucking awesome.
And because they were using this air raid siren for so long, it's actually become tradition. The factory is no longer functioning. But Monday to Friday, at these times, somebody goes down and they crank this air raid siren, which I think is the most wholesome thing, by the way.
It is, straight up.
There is somebody out there who's keeping that tradition alive.
That's wild, bro.
And I think that's something that's got to be appreciated.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why, like, when I heard the noise of it, it sounded to be the same pitch. And I was like, what time is it? When, no, it's 6 a.m. for me. So, like, it shouldn't be going off. And that's kind of...
Just got you looking out your window. What the hell?
Yeah. That's why I was super fucking confused. I was like, is it that time already? No, it's not. What the fuck is going on?
I want to say that they're actually doing it on a guitar. I want to say, now don't quote me on that, but I think they are actually doing it on a guitar, this band, because I think I know what part you're talking about with it sounding like an air raid siren.
Yeah, so if you listen to it, like, it should be within the next 10 seconds, like, you'll hear it. And you should know what I mean. So here we go.
Yeah, right there. Okay, no, yeah, I hear it.
That's an air raid siren.
Yeah. So, to me, the evolution of Winds of Plague, especially going from the original Decimate the Weak to what we have now, is it seems like they've kind of slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
And found a way to go deeper.
Yeah. That's fucking crazy. I like that.
Oh yeah.
That's definitely given me the push to check out more Winds of Plague in the future.
Yeah, I was just listening to YouTube randomly several months ago, and Winds of Plague, is one of the bands I have, on my music playlist, and then for whatever reason, that song specifically came on, and then I was like, wait, what the fuck? Did they like remaster this? I pulled it up, I was looking at it, I was like, holy shit, no, they've just completely redone the entire album.
Yeah, no, I didn't even fucking know that they had redone the album. Obviously, I said that they're a band that I've been sleeping on. Like, I'm gonna have to fucking change that. I'm gonna have to give them a listen.
Oh, for sure.
So we are on to some Vendetta Love. We're gonna take a bit of a change here from Winds of Plague. As I mentioned earlier on. As the description mentions, like they're sonic force of no bullshit, hard rock and grunge. That's
hell yeah,
kind of the best way that I can describe them. But let's jump into this and see what you think.
I do gotta say though, I think at some point we gotta make it back to Dead Label. I think our ADD ADHD has definitely led us down a different road.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't think that's a bad thing, you know?
No, I don't think so either. But people are going to come in here to listen, and they're like, oh, Dead Label. And the next thing you know, we're over here listening to Vendetta Love.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do, right? Right now, I'm going to put up a timestamp. We're going to play a little Choose Your Own Adventure. When we started talking about Dead Label, I will put in a timestamp. And what I want you to do, right, is when we've finished talking about Dead Label, I am then going to put another timestamp that brings you right back to the start of the video or start of the podcast, and then you can work your way through.
Hell yeah.
So we're just doing it out of weird chronological order. Enjoy. Should do that every podcast.
I think we probably will have to.
Knowing us. But yeah, we'll definitely jump back to Dead Label because now we're kind of back on the Irish scene. We can, go from
this is definitely a good segue, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's totally what I was going for. Yes, totally.
You're the mastermind of it all. Oh, this guy reminds me of Kurt so much.
Mm-hmm.
People passing by, they look and look away. All these city streets will lay me in the grave. Help me now, forever to show me out. Yo, how the fuck have I never heard of this band? Ooh, this has got an Alice in Chains vibe now.
Yep. Very, very much so. But, Will, I know I'm being a dickhead. I know I'm cutting it off. Vendetta Love are another one of those bands that kind of they fell under my radar for a while.
They've never been on my radar, and I am so fucking pissed off.
Also,
I've definitely got to check these people out more.
Yeah. We can definitely look about getting Vendetta Love on here as well. I think it'd be nice to kind of pick their brain a little bit. Same way we're going to, same torture that we're going to subject Dead Label to.
You ain't got to say it like that now. No, I think that'd be cool as shit because, I would definitely veer on saying that the Vendetta Love's it's more grunge, which you don't hear a lot of nowadays, which is a shame because just this 2 minutes right here shows how this genre of music goes from sounding one way and then it gets relatively heavy and then it kind of mellows back out.
Yeah.
That's what, while I was like, at the very beginning, it kind of reminds me of Kurt, whenever Kurt would start singing, but then it got heavy, just like Alice in Chains. And I'm just, bro, it's a fucking great band. This song, I'm doing a deep dive on this band. Holy shit.
Yeah. I remember seeing these guys, like I've seen them a few times live now. Sean is absolutely lovely human. Very strange individual. He loves to kind of go off on tangents, but that's what makes his character so lovable. Is like he is one of these guys that like a conversation never gets fucking boring with him. And any interaction with him that I've had with him has always been so fucking wholesome.
I want to do a little side note. Now, does he have a heavy Irish accent by chance?
Yes.
It always blows my mind, obviously, being an American, how people in other countries, whether they speak a native form of English, which I don't want to say, English here is the same like it is over there in Ireland or the UK, because, everybody's got a different accent and words are said differently. But it always blows my mind how, even somebody that can have a heavy accent can sit here and sing in such clear, Americanized English. It blows my mind every single time.
Yeah,
even if they don't speak English natively.
It's such a neutral tone to it.
This is wild.
So, like, if we actually go right and we check out Dead Label live, I'm not promoting this video, by the way. 100%, I'm not, because I know the band wants it to be taken down, but we won't talk about that. So let's just skip in here a little bit. I know earlier on I was talking about Dan, the bass player from Dead Label. When he actually comes up to the mic and he starts talking first, like, you can hear the Irish. Like 100% you can fucking hear the Irish in him. But then when he starts, like, it's completely different. But I know it's mainly because he's doing like guttural kind of vocals. But even still, you'll hear what I mean here now.
Uh-oh, did the audio get taken away?
Did it?
I don't hear nothing.
Can you hear me?
What? I can hear you. I don't hear the video.
Ooh, okay. Let's technical difficulties. Gotta love it. You hear it now?
No.
Oh, what the fuck? Uh-oh. Oh, looks like we might not be looping back to Dead Label at all. Give me 1 second. I'm going to try and leave the call and rejoin. I don't know if that's going to fix it.
All right.
Okay. Apologies, just quick little delay. Okay, hello, Fluffy.
Hello, hello.
All right, let's see now.
No, nothing.
Nothing?
No, real quick, go to the Dead Label tab you have open right there.
This one?
No, on the left side, the first one. Now just play something random. Okay, you can pause it. I hear that. It might be a country issue, which doesn't make sense. Because you're hearing it right now, correct?
Yeah. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm not.
Still nothing? Okay, hold on. Let's see if it's... Maybe it's the tab. I don't know.
Nope.
No? It's the volume of it, maybe?
I hear that.
That's wild. That is absolutely fucking wild. Okay.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah. And realistically, I think any other video that we find is just going to be too distorted. What the fuck is showing up in my fucking...
I was about to say.
I think it's actually the dead part of this. Is that actually like yeah, that's recommended. I want to specify, by the way, this right here. This is my history, okay? I've been watching gameplay videos. I have been watching guitar covers, fucking comedians. No matter how far back we go, we are not going to see any fucking wild shit. Like, I don't know why that's getting recommended.
I think they're trying to... I think it might be just because of the type of music you listen to. Hey, this music makes you happy. Here, maybe this video will make you happy.
Also, I know we're digressing again. I get that. You know Meshuggah, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, I found this video a while back of a guy playing the rhythm to Meshuggah's Bleed over Stevie Wonder's Superstition. And I remember my first time like sitting down to watch this, I was like, this is not going to work. This is not going to work whatsoever. And then he starts and I'm like, oh shit. Oh fuck, this works way too well.
This has no business working. This has no business working together. What the fuck?
There was a comment, yeah, here. This is like the metalhead equivalent of working the Mario Kart lick into jazz pieces.
Oh my god.
Okay, so we did say that we were going to backtrack to Dead Label.
Yes.
What was the House of the Fireflies by fucking Deftones, yeah. And Toxic. I'm just going to pop that up. We will get back to that in a moment. That's how we keep attention.
I know exactly what you're about to show.
you want to talk about something that has no business working? We'll address that here in a minute. So, yeah, look, at the beginning of the podcast, we did kind of address a few things about Dead Label, and I think we should definitely go back. You know, as Fluffy did say, we went on a attention deficit, high definition moment for an hour and a half. Yeah, an hour and a half.
It's gonna be habitual.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this and you expect us to talk about just one thing, fun fact, we can't do that.
Yeah, this is definitely not the podcast for you. Yeah, so like as I said, Dead Label were one of those bands that I got introduced to years ago, and I have loved everything that Dead Label has done so far. And they've fucking blown me away. And I think Slaves is a very, very good example of that. Like the way this song starts and then what it kicks into, like it's wild. It is fucking wild. And I think you can attest to that, Fluffy.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I got a little distracted. I was having to check something real quick. But yeah, no. It's definitely a great band. As a matter of fact, I think Slaves was the first song that you've shown me by them. I think it was. If it wasn't the first, it would have been the second.
I think I introduced you to Red first. This one here.
I can't remember because I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But touching on what you were saying about them being like one of your all-time favorite bands, of course, this is different from what Dead Labels is, and this band is also very widely known. But even as widely known as they were, I still feel like they never got the recognition that they deserved until after a passing of the lead singer, Chester Bennington. But the way you feel about Dead Label is the same exact way I feel about Linkin Park.
Yeah, that's
so 100%. I get what you say. Whenever Dead Label is just one of those bands that you've loved everything that they've put out.
Yeah.
And that says something, because it especially nowadays, it takes a lot for a band to have that sort of impact on somebody.
Yeah, like I remember picking up Sense of Slaughter, and that album in and of itself, like that fucking blew me away. And there's a bit of a weird story. I'm gonna go off on another fucking tangent here for a minute.
Here we go, guys. Buckle up your belts.
Story time, kids. I remember, now this is going to be a very fucking weird coincidence. And the unfortunate thing is there's no solid proof to actually 100% prove what I'm saying here. But I remember the band that I'm with, we were looking to start up a name. We used to go by Emerald Harlot, because me and the guitarist were actually pretty big Dark Souls fans. And we, I just recently both completed Dark Souls 2. We were talking about the Emerald Herald, and we wanted
Dark Souls
something.
Is a phenomenal trilogy, by the way. Sorry, I had to say that.
Yes, it fucking is. I think we should actually start to incorporate like gameplays of like certain games that we like during each one of the podcasts.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So we were trying to figure out like what way we could have a twist on it and not just have the band called Emerald Herald. And we ended up settling on the name The Emerald Harlot. And the whole deal was it was meant to be like an 1800s female in like a very like fancy emerald colored dress. And that was the original idea for the logo and everything else. It was meant to be like a pinup kind of design. We ended up parting with the guitarist and got a drummer. And the drummer was not fond of the name. So we were like, right, look, fuck it. We're unfortunately going to have to scrap the stuff that the guitarist ended up doing. So I think a new name is in session. And he said it to me, I think we should have something with wolves. I was like, right, fuck, like what the fuck are we going to do with this? And I was listening to Sense of Slaughter at the time and I had it on shuffle. And right as he sent that message, Thrown to the Wolves by Dead Label came on. And I was like, motherfucker, like what? What are the fucking chances? So I was like, right, fuck it. Pitched the idea, and he was like, yeah, fuck it, I'm sold. And I never told him. I never told him in his time and being with that band. I never fucking told him that that's where the name came from.
I don't think you ever should. And I think you need to make sure he does not listen to this part of the podcast.
I think it's fine because he did end up departing, because he moved to an entirely different part of Ireland. So unfortunately, his hands were kind of tied. He had to part. But yeah, it was one of those funny fucking coincidences.
Wow.
But we're going to jump in here to The Slaves by Dead Label. We'll experience a bit of this. And then, let's go with it.
Which I do want to say, this is a phenomenal intro in a song.
Mm-hmm. But hey, we will leave Slaves there because I really think if people want to listen to this, they should go and just listen to it in its fucking entirety because it's a wild ride.
Oh yeah, I said that this is the intro to the song is just phenomenal, and I say that because obviously they're introducing us to what the song is going to be, but in doing so, you have no idea, especially if this is like your first time ever listening to this band, or this is like the first song you've ever heard. You have no idea which route you're going to go, because with that intro, you can go something more soft, melodic, or you can go something that's a lot faster or heavier. And we see the direction that they took, and I think they did an incredible job. And that's kind of, touching back on Tool. That's, what Tool does several of their songs, they kind of introduce that way where it's kind of slow, and then throughout the song, obviously it gets a lot heavier or stay slow, whichever route that they end up taking. And that intro just is one of my top intros for any song that is out today. And that's just my personal opinion. I fucking love that intro.
Yeah. And you see, I think what makes Dead Label as powerful as they are, at least for me, is their variety. Like, we have that intro, we have the groove side of it. If you want something that has more groove, Flux. Like, this whole groove, like, that just stays true the whole way through the song. That fucking groove just stays the whole way. And the one big thing is Danny, the original guitarist, because now they're actually a 4-piece band, is not actually a metal guitarist. He does metal phenomenally well. But his whole deal is that he is more into, like, rock. He's more into like the old school rock. And if you want something that's faster pace and has more of a vibe to it, Triggered. And Triggered is a prime example of where Danny steps in and kind of takes more of the lead with the writing. And it's just, even listening to Slaves and Flux, it has a certain vibe to it, but then Triggered takes that vibe in almost a completely different direction. Like,
They just, I can see, why Dead Label is like one of your tops, because I mean they you just don't know what you're gonna fucking get.
No, like,
I mean you do, but it's all just it's different.
Yeah. And like, even a song that I was mentioning earlier, fucking Thrown to the Wolves, if I can find it on here, which I don't think I'll be able to. Is it on Spotify still? They're actually right here, which is handy. Sense of Slaughter. Come on, where is it? It's not even on Spotify anymore. Fuck. Because I know that they have had some issues with the old album for a little bit now.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
A.D.H.D. or I am tired and I cannot spell. Albums. No. I'm actually just thinking about it. Trying to search it this way is going to be a fucking nightmare. And the fun thing about Dead Label is they actually have 2 artist pages.
Nice.
Doesn't even feature here. Yeah, it only features It Burns Within. But yeah, like, even Thrown to the Wolves is, yet again, it's a completely different fucking vibe. I don't know if there is actually anywhere that features that album, because it's a very niche album, and it's definitely not the Dead Label that we know today, but you can tell that it was a very big foundation for what they had plans to do. Let's see. Does Bandcamp do previews? Does.
Oh shit, yeah.
And then even like if you jump towards the end of the song, yeah, right here. We just get a full, like, 1 minute outro solo that just ties the album to an end.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, even Dan's vocals are completely different on that album. Now, I could give my reasonings as to why. I'm not going to, because I don't know if they want the kind of stuff that went on with the recording and everything else and what was happening then. I don't know if they want that being mentioned anywhere. So I would rather just play it safe and not say a thing. But I know that there was some complications that happened both with the band and with recording and everything else. But anyway, yeah, look, they're fucking phenomenal. I haven't heard a bad song that Dead Label have ever fucking released. And that's not even coming from somebody who's a really big fan or anything else. It's even hearing Sense of Slaughter. Like, it had a groove, it had the weird changes, even the intro. The intro, Dead and Gone, is very fucking strange, but it also builds up a lot of hype and it introduces you to what the album is going to be. It does exactly what it needs to do.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's out there listening to this right now, I mean, I 100% do agree that Dead Label is a band that needs to be checked out. I mean, I haven't been disappointed myself from the music that, you know, I've heard from them. I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
There's no other word, man. I mean, it's legitimately fun music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. And you know, if we do actually get around to getting Dead Label onto the podcast, you know, I'm definitely going to be very curious as to what the future holds for them, in terms of like new music and everything else, or possible tour dates, because I know they just last week, I think it was, or the week before, played their first show since COVID. And I unfortunately did miss it. But I heard that it was an absolutely amazing show. Like, the house was packed for them, which is fucking phenomenal. Like, that's exactly what we need to see here in Ireland, because
fuck yeah.
I know me and you, Fluffy, we've spoken about this before. Like, the metal scene here it's big, but it's not fucking huge. Like, it's very much a gamble on whether or not you're going to sell out a house or not. So,
which is a shame, because, you know, if Dead Label's to show anything about, you know, the metal scene that's going on over there, I mean, it's fucking awesome.
yeah.
And bands like Dead Label do need to get that sort of recognition, because what they put out, you know, it's going back to what I said before, man. I mean, it's just fun fucking music.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell that, you know, they enjoy doing this, you know, and they enjoy making the music that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, like I said, there's yet to be a song that I've, you know, didn't like or just kind of felt neutral to.
Yeah. And I don't know. They're one of those bands that, like, if you ever get the chance, even if you're not a major fan, if there's, you know, only a couple of songs that you like by them, if you ever get a chance, go and see them live. Because yet again, like I've seen Dead Label play pub or bar gigs, whatever you want to call them, and then I've seen them do full venue shows as well. The energy was no different, whether it was a bar gig or if it was a full venue. They give it their fucking all. And that's one of the things that I admire about Dead Label, and kind of going back on what I said earlier on about, you know, when I tried out for that band and the person kind of gave me a little bit of shit over it. I stuck to that value because obviously I can see, like, Dead Label, no matter how bad a show is going for them, because being honest, I've seen them coming up on 20 times. I've seen a few bad gigs from them. Now, being honest, it was honestly due to no fault of their own. One was due to a bad sound tech. One was due to one of the instruments had fucked up, and it wasn't realized until they were actually due to go on stage. It was just because of, I think they had just come off a tour and they were getting ready to go on stage, and when they had done a sound check at the rehearsal studio, it sounded fine. When they'd done sound check at the venue, it sounded fine. When they got on stage, shit hit the fan. So that's what I mean. It genuinely was no fault of their own. But even still, they give it their fucking all. Like, it is.
You gotta respect that, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that just reminded me. You know, there was another very well-known popular band called Muse, and it was several years ago. It's been at least 8 or 9 years, at least. But there was this free event kind of going on in Atlanta to where, you know, just anybody can come in, and there was this lineup of all these big bands that were going to play, and whenever Muse came on stage, you'd hear obviously all the music starting to kick off, and then not just all of a sudden, just all this technical bullshit happened, and they somehow managed to blow every single fucking speaker that they had for the show just on the first song, and everything just completely went to shit. And you know, it says a lot about a band whenever, even when something like that happens, you just do your all to try to still do the best you can do, you know, given in any sort of situation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very commendable attribute that Dead Label's got.
Yeah. You see, I think one of the big things about it as well, and obviously I'm not going at this with a completely educated mind, but Dean Lamb from Archspire actually released a video there not too long ago, and they just finished a tour with Whitechapel. Now, I know when we're talking about this, we're talking about what are technically considered to be titans of the deathcore and death metal scenes, respectively. But Dean Lamb actually came forward about the expenditure that it cost them to be on tour. Now, Archfire are based in Canada, and they had to, you know, go over to the US, so they had to get work visas and, you know, organize travel and getting their gear across, getting everything insured, paying for staff and everything else, road staff. But in his video, he actually stated that they were in debt $150,000 before they even played their first show.
Fuck.
So like that goes to show like just how difficult and like how stressful and like costly touring actually is. And as I said, I understand that, you know, this comes down to what are considered to be two titans of their own genres. So naturally, they're going to have to put on bigger light shows. They're going to have to put on bigger stage
they're going to have
sets.
a lot more expenses.
Yeah.
Being as big as they are, for sure.
Yeah, but you see, the thing with that as well is, with them being as big as they are, they're somewhat gambling with the safety net. And the reason that I say somewhat is because obviously, with Whitechapel headlining, Whitechapel being a deathcore band, not everybody's going to enjoy death metal. Like, I know me personally, I'm very picky whenever it comes to death metal. I do not touch black metal. The chaos in it is just too much for me. I like my music to be chaotic. Obviously, listening to fucking Water Tension Experiment, fucking An Endless Sporadic, Dream Theater, Between the Buried and Me, the likes of these bands. Like, I do like chaos in my music, but it's just, in some cases, it's just a little too much. Did I say Water Tension Experiment? I meant Liquid Tension Experiment. Anyway, I'm fucking tired. I think I've said this a few times. It is 7:30 in the fucking morning. But yeah, like, they're kind of, as I said, gambling with a bit of a safety net. Because their name is already so widely known. And then it kind of comes back to, like, what's the expenditure like for a smaller band? And, like, they're not really gambling with a safety net because not many people know their name. And, how are they going to be guaranteed to recoup those losses? Like, it's the only way that you can kind of recoup those losses, or maybe kind of recoup those losses in the future, is to just put on the fucking show of your life, even if everything is going wrong.
Man, you gotta treat every show like it's your last show, especially whenever you're not as widely known. And maybe a band like Dead Label, I mean, they're not going to have that much of an expense, like these Titans do. But regardless, I mean, you've also got to think, they've got a life that they have to live. Of course, there's finances there, and they've got bills that they've got to pay. But for a band like Dead Label, it is so risky whenever they're going out on tour. Because, of course, these Titans, I mean, 150,000 in debt before the first show, but for the most part, at the end of the day, they're going to recoup that money. And a band like Dead Label not being as widely known, especially, they're almost guaranteed to take a hit every single time that they do a show.
Yeah.
Any sort of tour that they do. And, in order to cut those expenses as low as possible, I mean, that's kind of what makes them a more local band until, the rest of the world can discover this band and and hear them and see, the kind of music that's coming out from there in Ireland.
So, like, the one thing that I like to kind of reiterate to people, like, even before I found out about the expenditure, one thing that I did know is one of the biggest kind of profit makers for bands when they're on the road isn't ticket sales. It's merch sales.
Merch, baby.
Yeah. And
everybody's got to love it. Yeah. That's where all the money comes from.
But it's also one of the biggest money expenditures because, yet again, like, obviously when Dean Lamb was talking about it, he said that they paid 90,000 on merch alone. Like, that's fucking huge. So, like, the one thing that I always like to do personally is, if I'm going to see a band, like, I know I'm getting ready to go and see Blackstone Cherry in September, and I'm fucking stoked. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that, I know for a fact that I've got money in my pocket to buy a hoodie or a t-shirt or whatever the fuck it may be from Blackstone Cherry. but I also do my best to keep a little bit of extra cash in my pocket in case the opener actually ends up catching my attention and I like them. Then, you know, I pay that little bit extra forward, because realistically, if you've got a band that's going and they're playing your local area, and let's say, you know, for the entire tour, let's use Dean Lamb's expenditure or Archfire's expenditure of the 150,000. Like, if tickets for that gig are like $30 and there's 3 or 4 bands that are playing, that's $10 or less that each band is earning. Now, I know with capacity and everything else, obviously they're going to earn a bit, but at the end of the tour, if all they make is ticket sales, are they going to be in profit?
Oh, hell no, man. They're going to be even in more in debt, because I think, you know, a lot of people actually, I know for a fact that a lot of people don't realize that, you know, who makes these ticket prices aren't necessarily the bands, or, you know, even, you know, with stand-up comedies, with comedians, you know, they have no say in how much a ticket is. It is all the venues, because the venues are going to be making 90% of the profit off that ticket. So if the band's like, oh yeah, you know, I only want my ticket for like $10 or $5 or whatever, they're going to be like, okay, cool. Yeah. All right. We'll give you $5, $10. But the ticket's $50, $60, $100, $300, you know?
But you see, sorry,
go ahead.
In saying that like a venue earns 90%, what you've also got to reconsider, or what you've got to consider, is that's after somewhere like Ticketmaster has already taken their cut. Then you've got the venue taking their cut. And the reason that they're taking such a big cut is because they have to pay for staff to work bars or work the doors or work the cloakrooms. Then they've got to pay for security. Then they've got to, you know, in some cases actually update their insurances. They've also got to pay for, you know, cleaning staff, which I know, you know, most places should have, what do you call it? They should have cleaning staff on hand. But realistically, a venue isn't, you know, all venues aren't going to be open every night of the week anyway. Some are literally just dedicated to doing shows like this. I know that we have quite a number of them in Ireland where they only open during certain shows or during certain plays and stuff like that. And then as well as that, the band then with their cut, they've got to pay their road staff. They've got to, you know, keep whatever vehicles that they're taking with them. They've got to keep them topped up with gas or diesel or whatever the fuck it is that it's going to take. If it breaks down, they've got to pay for repairs. So that's what I mean. Like it's kind of, it's.
I mean, if you break it down and say, they make, I don't know, let's just go with $10. Let's say they make $10 off a ticket. Automatically, $5 of that $10 goes away. And keep in mind, this is like per band. So $5 of the $10 goes away to pay for travel, you know, housing, food, whatever it may be. And then you take, what a smart band will do is for every ticket, take a couple bucks off to the side, especially if they're like doing road traveling, you know, on like an RV or whatever it may be, that they're going to already take another couple bucks off that to, you know, take care of any sort of expenses with the vehicle, whether it be gas, like you're saying, or any sort of repairs that would be needed, you know, flat tires. I mean, that shit happens all the time.
Yeah.
So off a $10 ticket, a band itself is going to make $1, maybe $2. And next thing you know, you still got the actual band members themselves, whether it's a 2-man group, a 4-man group, or a fucking 6-man group. They got to split that. So everybody's coming out with pennies on the dollar. Literally the best way to show any sort of support, you know, to any sort of band, comedian, you know, social media influencer, whatever it may be, the best way you can support them has always been with merch. Even if it's like a fucking lanyard or something. That's always been the best way.
Yeah. And the thing as well is like, even whenever these guys are out on the road, like I know we're talking about a lot of road expenditure, as I said, with the gas or diesel, with breaking down, with staff. Whenever these people, like whenever the men and women that are out doing all of this, these forms of entertainment that we go to see, like they can't exactly turn around to the landlord, and go, oh, by the way, I'm not going to be in my apartment or in my house for a month, so can you just not charge me?
Oh yeah, bro. There's the home bills too, man. Oh yeah, my god.
Like, even whenever you're not home, like the majority of homes that actually have like central heating, like gas and stuff like that, I guarantee you most of that is run off of an electrical system, which is slowly ticking away and putting up your electricity bill. So even when they're not there, there's an electricity bill waiting for you when you go home. There's a fucking rent is still due when you get home. Chances are, unless you've actually, like dry packed a shitload of food, or, you've frozen all your meats and stuff like this, you're going to have to buy a whole new pantry worth of stuff. Now, obviously, I get that you can be smart with it. You can pick up tin stuff and, as I said, your dried goods and all that. Completely understandable. But at the same time, whenever you get off the road from, touring, I imagine that, you just want to set your fucking teeth into a big fucking lump of steak or something. You don't want to be dealing with gas station food any longer.
Oh, no. You don't want no gas station or fast food or anything like that. You just want some good old home cooking.
Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy. Like, watching that video from Dean Lamb definitely opened my eyes to quite a bit more, and the stresses and strains that come with touring. It's fucking,
for sure.
It's wild. One of
the most stressful things you can do.
Yeah, like not only on yourself, but like on your family as well. Because like realistically, if you've got a wife and kids at home, or even vice versa, if you have a husband who's now looking after kids, it's going to take a physical and mental toll, because your spouse isn't there. That person that's meant to be there to give you a hand. When you're busy getting the kids dressed, getting them ready for school, like they're not there making coffee or dealing with the lunches and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
If the kids are sick, they've got to be the ones getting up and making sure they're good and everything else. I'm going to sound like a dickhead when I say this. I'm very 50-50 on the whole, having kids and then being on the road. In certain ways, I find it to be quite selfish, but at the same time, I don't think anybody should be deprived of having a family.
I think that's where, having a very good partner comes into play, because if you're with somebody and they're trying to make their music career work, then you should already recognize. I'm actually 100% on the side of saying it's very selfish, even though even if you're doing it for your family. I mean, if your family wasn't there, you'd still probably be doing the same thing, because that's something that you want to do. But having a partner that understands that and knows that, and is there with you the whole time. I mean, take Sharon and Ozzy.
Mm-hmm.
That's another that's a perfect example. If you have a partner that knows all that, they're going to understand that, even though, yes, y'all are a couple or you're married or whatever it may be, and you have kids, you're in a sense a single parent, because you're not going to see your partner that much. And even whenever you do, unfortunately, that partner, whenever they're home, they're not going to really want to do anything, with the kids, not really help, whatever it may be. And you can sit here and argue about it or whatever it may be, but then you also got to understand the fact that, they're on the road 200 out of 360 days a year.
Yeah. And that's something that I want to make abundantly clear before we go any further. We're not trying to state that, anybody that comes off the road and goes home and doesn't want to do anything, we're not trying to state that they're deadbeat or anything else. It's just,
oh yeah, most definitely.
Doing that kind of work is very strenuous. It really is.
Oh
and
yeah.
It's like getting off a 12-hour shift. When you go home, the last thing you want to do is go home and run a fucking marathon. No, you want to go home, you want to relax, you want to just have some food and just chill and watch something and do something that's just completely fucking brain dead, where you don't have to pay attention, where you don't have to, give any more energy than you need to, because you're after doing a shitload and you just, you need that rest.
Yeah, when you're on the road, it's not you're working a couple hours. It's you're working 24/7.
Yeah, because
the entire time.
Yeah, because even when you're like going from point A to point B, like, yeah, I know, bands might have these tour buses that have beds and everything else, but realistically, your body has to adjust to the fact that, hey, we're moving when we're trying to, rest. What the fuck is going on?
And on top of that, no matter how nice of a tour bus you may have, that bed in there ain't no Tempur-Pedic. That couch ain't no Lazy Boy. No. It's pretty shitty material.
Yeah.
So whenever you're out on the road, I mean, your body is literally taking abuse.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, one other thing that I have heard of before is, like, whenever bands get up and they, like, let's say tour in a different country, even like drinking the water is fucking risky, because naturally enough, like, your body has built up a tolerance to the water that you would have been drinking in your own country. And with even small changes like that, it can have a fucking huge toll on you. Like, I could be completely wrong with this now. I think it might have been Randy Blythe who was talking about the fact that when they went wherever the fuck it was, he was actually told not to drink the water because of the fact that, like, they won't be used to it. He was told, you drink this, you will fucking either puke your fucking stomach up or you're going to shit your brains out.
Oh yeah. I mean, even if you're like just traveling, not even taking into consideration, being a band, like, for example, here in America, we've got a certain type of water, and even between each state, it's still different. However, most Americans know, no matter how bad the water is here in America, if you go down to Mexico and you're out in the countryside in Mexico, you don't want to drink the water, not unless it's boiled. Yeah. I've personally made that mistake, and I was sick for 2 weeks, just because I got so thirsty and forgot to boil the water, and I was sitting here sick out of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, whenever you're traveling, I mean, especially as a band, I mean, you got to pay attention to everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's fucking wild. Like, there's so many little things like that you end up taking for granted that, like, whenever you're out on the road, I imagine that, like, you wouldn't really pay attention to them unless you're talking to somebody that's already seasoned in it and has already made these mistakes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Fucking wild. Yes. Okay. So we are going to kind of pack this in. I think we've been at this nearly 2 hours now, have we? We've actually been at it more than 2 hours. The last thing that I wanted to touch on, I don't know if you have anything else to add before we kind of jump into this final segment.
No, I think I'm pretty good so far.
Okay. CMFT2. So apparently,
CMFT2.
Apparently, Corey Taylor is doing a second solo album.
Huh.
I saw this earlier on. I saw this song show up, and I was hovering over it, and I was like, no, don't be a dick.
Yeah, I can see you haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, I was like, don't be a dick. Let's just wait. Let's sit down, watch this with Fluffy, and kind of get our opinions on it. So me and Fluffy are actually going to, we're going to sit down and watch this. I don't know if we're going to keep the entire thing in the podcast, just for copyright and strike reasons. Yeah. So, you ready?
Yep.
It's only my heart that you're taking, but you're so alive, it's amazing. Before we begin, I wanna make it go on and on and on. It's only my hate that you're killing, 'cause you're so alive, it's thrilling. I wanna succumb, take me beyond. Come together 'cause I'm ready for you. Nothing matters, all I want is you. Just say, leave me alive, just stay. I'm ready to die. Give me everything I never could have. Show you everything I know that I am. Just one more time tonight. I promise in the morning everything is alright. Write this down and mark my words. I would tear myself apart for you. Find me when the lights go down and I'll show you what I see. It's only my heart that you're taking. You're so alive, it's amazing. Before we begin, I wanna make it go on and on and on and on. It's only my hate that you're killing, 'cause you're so alive, it's thrilling. I want us to come, I wanna take it beyond. All I wanted was a dream come true. All I wanted was a woman like you, with the fire in your heart, smoke in your eyes. All I wanted was a place for you and I. Write it down and mark my words. I would tear myself apart for you. Find me when the lights go down. I'll show you what I see. It's only my heart that you're taking, but you're so alive, it's amazing. Before we begin, I wanna make it go on and on and on and on. It's only my hate that you're killing, but you're so alive, it's thrilling. I want us to go, I wanna take it beyond. It's only my heart that you're taking, but you're so alive, it's amazing. Before we begin, I wanna make it go on and on and on. It's only my heart that you're taking, but you're so alive, it's amazing. Before we begin, I wanna make it go on and on and on and on. It's only my hate that you're killing, 'cause you're so alive. I want us to come, take me beyond.
Hey? That
I
was
dig
definitely very interesting.
So the whole time, we're sitting here listening to this song, I'm sitting here thinking, obviously being, with him being like a musician, um, whenever he's writing these songs out, whether it's him or Maynard or whoever, you know, I'm so curious how they distinguish that this song is going to be for this band or this band or this band, all their little side projects they got going on. Because, Stone Sour's got one sound. Corey's, his self-titled band, has another sound. And then obviously we all know Slipknot's got one sound, just like with Maynard with Tool and all his other projects. Because this song could have definitely gone, one of three ways, and doing it this way, I think it was pretty good. This is Corey showing, obviously a lot of his really clean vocals, and I would classify this more just along the lines of it being just regular rock music, or even something like pop rock, because this song I can see being as catchy as it is. It could be one of those songs that just kind of just fucking pops, and everybody kind of listens to. But I've always wondered how a lyricist or a singer with multiple projects distinguishes what project the song is that it's going to be going towards.
Yeah. I don't know. Just a personal opinion here. I'd imagine that what they basically go for is, there might be something in the song that kind of pops for them. And then they're like, oh, you know what? Like, I'd love to hear what way we can do our take on this. Like, obviously, I don't know when, if I ever got the chance, I would love to pick Corey Taylor's brain. But like, I'd imagine that when he's sitting down to write something, even before his self-titled or his kind of solo work, whenever he's writing lyrics, maybe he kind of thinks, oh, you know what, this sort of has the more mellow kind of feel for a Stone Sour song. Or, I think this should be done in a bit more of an aggressive way. So I think Slipknot could definitely cover that a hell of a lot better. And now we're even starting to see some more of the instrumental and guitar work from him, which is fucking amazing. And I know we saw that with Snuff from Slipknot as well. Because I know I believe anyway, he wrote the guitar parts for it. And then had... did Jim actually play that on the official recording? That's what I want to know now. All hope's gone. Or was that all Corey Taylor? That was all Corey Taylor. Okay, so...
That, speaking of Snuff... How? Well, I guess this was definitely before he started doing his own self-titled side project. But I don't know, man, because Slipknot's just a band that we can just go on another fucking 2-hour tangent about. So I'm just going to hold that thought. It's a great song, but yes, all that being all Corey Taylor, I mean, that's just mad impressive.
Yeah. Right. So, I think we're gonna leave it off there.
Yes, sir.
I think something, now that I'm looking at this webpage, I think that is something that we should do for one of the episodes, is go through maybe the top 100 albums in the 1001 albums to hear before you die, and kind of say if we've heard them, if we have, what was our experiences with them, if we haven't, maybe kind of if we've heard of the band, if we haven't, how we'd like to get introduced to them, or how we did get introduced to them. I think that could be an interesting concept or episode that we could do in the future.
Oh, for sure. It'd be fun.
Yeah. So I don't know if we have a name set in stone for the podcast. I think for right now we're just going to wing it, and we're going to kind of decide over time. I know I did pitch it an idea earlier on into the recording.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and just throw that name out there. Audio delights, harmonies, and diversions.
Yes.
I mean, I'm digging that, but of course we've got to do some talking and figuring out. But I definitely like the diversions part because we've definitely talked. I feel like we've talked about a lot of stuff just on this one episode.
Yeah. Also, did you notice, Fluffy?
Well, what are we looking at?
The name that I threw out for the podcast. Say the name again.
Audio delights, harmonies, and diversions.
I say the first letter of each word.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you did there, dude. A.D.H.D. Yes. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm digging it more now.
Yeah, so I was thinking we could go by the A.D.H.D podcast, but hey, look, we're gonna sit on that for a while, I think, and kind of see how we feel about it over the next coming days, and before the next episode. But yeah, this has actually been a lot of fun. It definitely went a lot more smooth than I thought it was going to.
Yeah, it definitely been a lot more longer than I thought it would. I mean, I know me and you talked about, about an hour, but here we are, almost 2.5 hours in.
Yeah.
I definitely was smooth, especially being our first. I was a little hesitant, on how it was going to go, but yeah. I mean, just once me and you get going, I mean, it's just like a snowball.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, that is literally how our fucking friendship was built. It was just, we would go off on these tangents and we wouldn't stop. Like, nobody could stop us.
Yeah, no, people would, like, in Discord calls, like, be talking over us, and then we just talk louder, or what I would do is just turn everybody else down.
Yeah. But yeah, look, we're doing here what we've always done and kind of what our friendship was built upon, and this actually feels very smooth. It feels very fluid, and I've loved doing this. I'm definitely excited and hyped for next episode.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right, so we're going to finish off, Fluffy. It has been fucking amazing. I can't wait for us to get around to the next one. Hoping to have a few things set up for the next one. I don't necessarily know if the next episode will feature any special guests or anything, but we will see. We'll kind of work out our schedules and everything else, because obviously with Fluffy being in the US, me being in Ireland, it's already a little difficult for us to record the podcast, and I don't want an artist from like Ireland, let's say, staying up until 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning just to kind of let us pick their brain.
Yeah, that would be extremely selfish on our part. But if we do have an artist, I definitely think that we would need to be very cordial about it and stick to a time. That the artist obviously is good with. And I think if we were to have, an artist on, maybe I'll figure out a way to implement my webcam or something, and vice versa. That way, we can all sit down and obviously converse and be able to see each other, which I think would be cool. And that's not going to say that, we're going to be using our webcams all the time, every time. And, we may not even go that route. We may just stick it strictly to, we're going to see what CJ's popping up on his recommended on YouTube. But I mean, with due time, I think we'll get it more ironed out and figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah. We don't exactly know where the episodes are going to land yet. Obviously, we won't have them up on Spotify or anything just yet if we do decide to continue, or if we're trying to go the streaming route or anything else. Because obviously there's quite a few things that we'd have to work out on our behalf, but YouTube and stuff like that is kind of the biggest accessible platform right now. And if we do decide to run forward with this, we should have a Discord set up where if you have suggestions and you don't really want to put them in YouTube or wherever, we will have links to the Discord. Also down below, any of the local bands that we have talked about or will talk about in the future will all be linked down below, just to make it easily accessible for people, and where you can visit their storefronts and purchase their albums and stream music and all that good shit. But yeah, this has been a lot of fucking fun. Episode 0 officially done. It's fucking crazy.
Yep, I agree. I do want to also throw out another little note out there for everybody. Well, of course, we're starting off, talking about music and Dead Label and all these other bands. I will say, me and CJ have had talks that we won't strictly be just talking about music. We plan to talk about other subjects, video games, whatever it may be. Or we may have episodes where it's just completely fucking random and we don't even know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah. And just to kind of quickly feed into that, sorry, Fluffy, I know I did cut you off. One thing that we're never going to fully branch into is, anything of religious or political topics. I think the only way that we'll kind of slightly glance on them is if there is some kind of controversy in what, we're talking about. So, let's say we're talking about the game Manhunt, where it was banned in certain countries because of governments. That's the only time that we'll really get political. That's not what we're about. There's an old saying, friends that want to stay friends don't discuss religion, politics, or there's some other one that you throw in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Right. This has been wonderful. Hopefully by the next episode we'll have a name decided and we can officially record episode 1 instead of episode 0.5.
And hopefully we'll have a name, and by our 3rd episode it won't be 0.75. So.
Yeah. Oh, right. Don't forget to do all the fucking shit, the subscribe, the comment, the fucking like, share, tell your grandma's dog's parrot about the podcast, and yeah, we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.
Adios.